Hey there. I was just finishing things up by sitting very, very still. Almost like I was too lazy to add animation. So, it's been a little over a month since we finished our Electronic Gaming Monthly's Best and Worst series, and people are still asking me, what's next? Is it finally time to tackle Game Pro? Next Generation? Maybe a magazine that's still going, like Game Informer or Entertainment Weekly? Where do you go after posting 44 episodes about Electronic Gaming Monthly? Yeah, these are all good questions, which is why I've decided to take a few minutes and give you an update about our upcoming schedule. Believe it or not, we have 3 new magazine shows to talk about, including an announcement about the successor to Electronic Gaming Monthly's Best and Worst. But before we reveal that, we first need to talk about the Nintendo Switch. As I'm sure you already know, Nintendo Switch Online subscribers are treated to a smattering of Nintendo Entertainment System and Super NES ports almost every month. Starting with their next drop of games, we're going to be debuting a new series where we take a look at what critics said back in the day when those games were first released. We're going to take reviews from not only EGM, but also Die Hard Game Fan, Super Play, Mean Machine, Game Pro, and dozens of other old school magazines. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun putting all of these games into the proper historical context and then analyzing the original reviews. It'll be like a mini best and worst episode mixed with an informative buyer's guide angle. I can't wait to start talking about the Nintendo Switch Online games, so expect to see that episode pop up when the next batch of 8 and 16-bit games are announced. Whenever that is, it's really up to Nintendo. Now, when we completed the 44-episode run of Electronic Gaming Monthly's Best and Worst 1989 to 2009, a lot of people wondered if that would be the end of us talking about EGM. If you're one of those people who worried that I would never say the name Sushi X ever again, well, fear not. We may be done counting down the best and worst games, but we still have plenty to cover. I've been hard at work on a bunch of standalone episodes that'll flesh out our deep dive into EGM. For example, we're going to be breaking the magazine down by numbers, including charts and graphs and averages and all kinds of other nerdy stuff. We're going to dig through the genres and companies and consoles and really just everything else in one epic video that will instantly turn you into an Electronic Gaming Monthly expert. We're also going to debut a new competitive show that'll have me and a guest try to guess the correct order of top 10 lists published in EGM back in the 1990s. Can we figure out what the hardest games are or who the sexiest game babe is? Well, we'll find out in the coming months. The point is, we still have a lot of EGM on the way. Expect number breakdowns, game shows, history essays, and a lot more. All this will be sprinkled in throughout 2021. And I guess that brings us to the big question on everybody's mind. What's next for the Best and Worst series? To answer that question, we first need to go back to the very beginning. Back in 2015, I started a series where we looked at Nintendo Power's best and worst reviewed games going year by year. We started in 1989 and ended in 1995, right up to the point where they completely revamped their entire review system. After finishing the 14-episode run, I knew that I wanted the next series to expand on that premise. We had just spent so much time looking at Nintendo systems that it only made sense to focus next on a multi-platform magazine. And if we're gonna look at a multi-platform magazine, we might as well just go after the very best. That's how we got to Electronic Gaming Monthly's Best and Worst, which ended up running for 3 years and 44 episodes. For the next series, I knew that I wanted to keep expanding the coverage. If we're gonna jump into another magazine, I don't want to just repeat a lot of the same games covered in the EGM and Nintendo Power shows. The last thing I want from this series is for it to become repetitive and predictable. I needed a magazine that offered something new, something beyond the typical multi-platform publication. What's more, I wanted a magazine that only lasted a few years. Short, sweet, and different. And with that criteria in mind, I made the most obvious decision. Let me introduce you to Video Games and Computer Entertainment's best and worst reviewed games of 1990 through 1993. An 8-episode series that will comb through more than 1,000 reviews spread across 4 crazy years. Now look, I get it. Video Games and Computer Entertainment isn't exactly as big of a name as Electronic Gaming Monthly. In fact, I have a hunch that for a lot of people, this is the very first time hearing those words said in that order. And while I'll admit it's not the flashiest choice, I feel like there are a lot of reasons why you should be excited for this upcoming series. For one thing, VG and CE were known for their bizarre contrarian takes. I mean, they liked Kung Fu on the Lynx more than Star Fox and Street Fighter 2. And I guarantee that you're never going to be able to guess what their best reviewed game of 1992 was. I could give you a million guesses and a whole bunch of hints, and you would still be dumbfounded by the answer. Let me tell you, there's nothing more unpredictable than video games and computer entertainment. Best of all, this will finally allow us to talk about the computer games that defined the early 1990s. This was an era filled with amazing point-and-click adventure games, groundbreaking simulators, and a real push for immersive 3D worlds. The computer space was dramatically different from what EGM was covering at the time, and it's so much fun reading VG and CE's long-form reviews. In other words, we may be overlapping years with some of the other series, but not the games. We're going to be looking at the early 1990s in a completely different way. Now, the plan is to write and produce all 8 episodes in February, and then run them weekly starting in either late March or early April. Leading up to that, we're going to post some videos looking at VG and CE's history, and then put them in context with the other magazines of the time. One thing that I absolutely love about the issues is the cover art, which was often hand-drawn by the magazine's artists. It's weird and baffling in all the right ways, and we're going to be ranking them in an upcoming video. And I'll be back in a few weeks with more information, including a release date, availability, and more. In the meantime, we're going to continue to bring in new reviews, game over episodes, and more. We have a whole slate of shows you're going to love debuting this year. I appreciate your support and helping me spread the word. If you know anybody who loves old school games and classic magazine reviews, then hey, do us a favor and please point them to our Nintendo Power and Electronic Gaming Monthly series. I recently revamped the playlist to make it even easier to watch the complete runs in the correct order. Let me know if you have any questions about video games and computer entertainment's best and worst in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you so much for watching this update and being interested in our ongoing magazine coverage. It really means a lot to me, and I wouldn't be able to do this without you. I want to see you later this week with a review of Project Starship X, so be on the lookout for that. Until then.